my name is Judy and I'm the City Stitcher, and welcome to my Flosstube channel. Today is Sunday, September the 12th, and it is a mostly gray, overcast day. So I have to say that fall is certainly upon us. The leaves are starting to change color and fall, which means more yard work. But I'm looking out my window over here and go, my sweet peas are hanging on, so I think I need to go out and get myself a couple of bunches, because I think evenings with frost will be upon us imminently. If you are a new viewer, thank you for stopping by and spending some time with me. And if you are a returning viewer, I truly do appreciate those of you who come back week after week to check in on what I've managed to stitch over the course of the last week. It's been an okay week. I've got some stuff done. I've got some thoughts, okay, which I always do. So just one quick comment on the comments last week. So thank you so much for those of you who commented. So Judy, who also did the nativity, I'm glad that you bring it out every year and you love looking at it. And yeah, there will always be people who don't understand you know, the amount of time that goes into these types of projects and wonder why we do it. But the answer is we love the final product. Sometimes we love the entire journey. We all know I moaned, whined, and complained inordinately about the nativity. So some of the journey was good and I enjoyed it. Some of the journey, it was getting to me. It was a long journey. It took longer than it should have, and I think that's where it ends up getting to me. But I'm very happy with the result, and I'm really glad it's finished. And I'm really glad that my mom is going to get to enjoy it. Again, for me, it's always an interesting memory when I go back when she was giving me her stash, because she was quite hesitant to give me the charts. She finally looked at me and said, I'm never gonna stitch this, so you can have the charts and the fabric. Anyway, so now it's finished, and it's gonna be up in her home. Anyway. And with that, so the topic for this week is let's talk a Stoney Creek September. And that, of course, has to do with the fact that my focus piece for this month is from the Stoney Creek Design Company. So I will be going through a bunch of charts, but the topic, as always, will be occurring at the very end of this episode. So if you aren't interested in Stoney Creek, you can always, just watch the stitching part and move along. For those of you who are interested in Stoney Creek, I will be showing a selection. Again, it's not all of my stash. It's a selection of the Stoney Creek items that I have in my stash waiting for me to stitch. And so with that, let's start off with what have I stitched this week. So as I said last week, so I always say that I have these goals for the week, and sometimes I follow the plans and the goals, and sometimes I don't at all. So this week I did pretty good on following what I said I was going to do. So even though we had gone into a new month, I kept out my August focus piece, which was Bee's Knees by Ink Circles, which I am stitching on 32 count Lilac Lugana, using the called for Valdani silk. And so I did spend some time, and as usual, I've got to look for my arrows. Got my final one of the 4. Now it's been folded up, so it's not going to look as good as it did before. But so there's my. Let's actually. I know you'd think that I would have this prepared. It's not like I didn't know I was going to be recording. It's okay, I have some tools. Slight delay. Talk amongst yourselves. All right. So here's where it is now that I'm putting it away. So I am not expecting that this project will come out again in 2021. I am expecting that it will make an appearance in 2022. How much, that's up for debate. We'll see how the year goes along. So I'm very happy that I'm putting this away with all 4 of them completed. And when I started this piece, I think I had mentioned that I usually start with the bottom one because that's where I'm testing out how the colors are working and move up. And so ending up with. Hopefully I know what I'm doing by the time I hit the top one. And I have to say, I'm very happy with how the colors came out for that very top one. So I probably, you know, given how heavily variegated this Valdani silk is, I probably spend more time than I really need to figuring out about where I'm starting it and placing it and all that kind of stuff. Because, you know, when you step back, and again, so this is the difference when you're looking at your stitching really close up versus when you step back. You know, yes, you can see that it's variegated and all that kind of stuff, but you aren't necessarily following, it's not so geometric that you follow the flow. But I do still spend some time sort of trying to make sure that all of the colors are appearing in certain spots and that it, you know, I could totally make it look, I feel like I could start some of the sections where I'm starting new thread and make it look very jarring. And that's, you know, whether or not it would really look that way is up for debate. But that's just how I stitch and that's how I think about it. And that's me. So I'm very happy with how this piece is finishing up. Yes, extended a little bit over into September, cut into some of my September stitching time, which I'm totally fine with because I'm very happy with where I'm ending this particular piece and putting it away for the year. So again, really happy that I got started. Feel like I got a decent amount of progress on it. And as I said last week, let's not kid ourselves. There's a lot left to go. So I'm not close to a finish on this, but I'm happy that I got it started. So that is the ink circles one. I'm just looking at what else I've got going on over here. All right. So then the second one that I spent a little bit of time on, and again, emphasis is on a little, is my infamous temperature tree from the Stitchin' Mommy. I'm very happy. Have I mentioned this before? I'm very happy with my temperature tree. Again, I am not taking it off my Q-snap because I'm going to be working on it again today. So I finished off all of the leaves here for the month of February. And I know I take an inordinate amount of interest in how this tree is shaping up and where the leaves are going. So my laugh to myself is we started February with a green leaf. We ended February with a green leaf. We had these horrendously cold days over here. And then my chuckle to myself was, so I've finished the March branch. So I've done all of the March branch and I'm starting to work on the leaves. The first day of March is the same color as the first day of February. Their temperatures were not identical, but very, very close. So again, we talk about the weather a lot here where I live, but it's certainly not, like my recollection of, like I remember the cold in February. I don't remember February being as warm as it is. And next week when we check back, because I'm expecting that I will have finished all the leaves on March, there were some surprising days in there. So I had a little bit of a chat, told my parents that I was working on this. So I'm hoping sort of over this next week, next time I stop by their place, that I will remember to take this. My dad will be very fascinated with this as well. So there's where I got to this week. Again, so not a ton of progress. Finished off the March branch, started on the March leaves. I am going to work on this today, which is why I'm not taking it off the Q-snap. So I'm actually going to hopefully work on the April branch and get some progress on that, and then come back and start working on leaves. I have more stitching time on a Sunday, so I figure I can do that chunk, because those leaves, I think generally like the biggest leaf is like maybe 12 stitches. So it's not a huge amount of stitching, so it's really easy in a given evening just to haul this out and, you know, do a color and put all the leaves of that color. And so for me, I just figure if I've got the April branch completed as well, if there are colors that are showing up on that branch as well, I could probably do a few leaves in April while I'm working on March. but certainly there will be some new colors appearing in March. As I say, this is going to be fascinating to watch how this comes together. This is one where I go, I really love working on this. I love working on it for a whole variety of reasons. Anyway, so that is my temperature tree, which is coming along. And forgot to bring my cover for Tapestry of Life, but it was the cover shot from last week's video, if you want to know what it looks like. So I got some work done on this one this week as well. I feel like I made decent progress. So here's where I got to on the words. That looks like it needs some backing. So worked on the words. So the center section of words that I was working on, I have everything finished to the center point of that section on the left hand side. So now I'm just going to work on the right hand side. And one of the things that I started to do towards the very tail end of this week was, as I finished a strand that I was using for words, I would come down and I would do one of the colors. Now, this is very typical for Stoney Creek, which is why a lot of people don't like working on Stoney Creek patterns. At the end of the day, the shading is lovely and it looks fantastic, but it takes an awful lot of colors to achieve that look. And so, you know, everything that you see down here, there are 4 different colors of DMC that I have used down here. And generally, you know, I think the biggest grouping I had was like 4 stitches in a row. So it's 4 stitches and then 3 stitches and then 3 stitches and then, you know, 4 stitches and 2 stitches. So it's quite picky. It's a lot of color changes. And again, this is why a lot of people, they really like the look of a Stoney Creek. But when you look at the chart and you look at the number of colors and the number of color changes, it's a lot of people go, I love it. I love how it looks. It would drive me nuts to stitch it. And so I won't stitch it. And I totally get that. And again, I'm not necessarily going to love stitching this part down here. I'm going to love how it looks at the end, and that's why I do it. But I think, so as I'm doing this, that this is the plan, that I will do one strand of the words and then I will come down and I will do a color of the DMC down here, and then do one strand of the words and come down and do a color. And so I've started doing that on Thursday night. And I went, okay, so it's like you do a little bit of annoying things and then you go back and go, okay, I'm just going to do words. And then you come down and you do a bit of the annoying things and then you come back and you do words. And so I think that's actually going to work out really well for me. So check back next week. So that's my plan. I'm going to continue with the words. I'm going to, you know, rapidly run out of words in this section. And then I've got border here as well as border up here. I think I'm going to enjoy the border up here more than I do here. So even if I finish all the words and I start to work on this border up here, because that's going to take me to more words, I'm probably still going to do, you know, one strand of the border up here. There comes the sun. One strand in the border and then come down and do DMC, and then do one strand up here and then come down in here. So check back next week. I'm going to be very interested myself to see how that works out. But I think from a strategy of how to work on this, you know, annoying section, I think that's going to work out best. So yeah, pleased with how that's coming along. So yes, and usually I find working on the left side, you know, because I started this in the center for unique personal reasons, getting these words, I prefer to work my words like the way you would actually write them out, because that's generally how I stitch them. So it's much easier once I sort of came over here and sort of worked over here and tried to get to the first words of each of these rows and then work my way over. So yeah, not bad. I'm pleased with how that's coming along. Like I say, to me, it will be very interesting next week to see how much is done down here. Because when I started doing it on Thursday night, I'm like, okay, this is not quite so annoying, because I do a little bit of annoying and then I go back to words. Anyway. So that's my stitching for this week. A full 15 minutes in. 3 projects. So yeah, Ink Circles is going away, Temperature Tree is staying out, and then focusing on Stoney Creek. Hoping to get some good progress on that. For those of you who, oh yeah, so let's do Stashquisitions. So I don't have any Stashquisitions to show this week. I'm expecting that next week's video I will have Stashquisitions. So Joanne, who's been waiting and waiting for me to show some stuff because I've been taunting her with some stuff, I'm expecting that in next week's video is when I will haul out the stash, or the stuff that I've bought over the last couple of weeks, to show you and explain what's going on there. Yes, it's another week of taunting. Sorry about that. So I haven't bought anything else this week, so I don't have anything to show for that. Joanne also thinks that she should get a prize because she guessed I was going to get $100 for the Stitch from Stash group for my piece. And I got $102.50, which don't you worry, I've spent that. And check back when I get that next Stashquisition because we might have a problem yet again. Anyway, we'll talk about that next week. So your gift, Joanne, was I showed you Tapestry of Life and showed you something that you hadn't seen before and promptly went out and got present. Anyway, with that, let's move on. So we are officially into the topic now. So if you aren't interested in seeing some Stoney Creek patterns, thank you for stopping by and spending a very brief amount of time with me. I hope you have a great week. And for those of you who are interested in seeing an assortment of Stoney Creek charts, here they come. So I wanted to start off with the Stoney Creek magazine. I've shown this before. 2 weeks ago when I did my Stashquisitions, I showed that I had picked up my, what season did they call it? Summer 2021. The way they label these is throws me off because it's not how I would label them, but I think this is the fall one. They call it summer. Well, off we go. So they put out a magazine quarterly. You cannot subscribe to the Stoney Creek magazines. They are only available from retailers, so whether it's a brick and mortar shop or you can get them from online needlework stores as well. Worst case scenario, if you're having difficulty finding anyone who's carrying the Stoney Creek magazine, you can always go to the Stoney Creek website itself because they have their own shop. So you can go to stoneycreek.com, and a couple of things that are good about the Stoney Creek website is certainly for their magazines, they always show you all of the projects. There's a sneak peek into each of the issues, which shows you everything, all of the charts that are included in any given magazine. They also have, for all of their issues, including back issues, they have a shopping list by issue. So if you've got one and you're like, okay, I want to work on that design and, you know, I need to get the stuff to do it, all you would need to do is go onto the Stoney Creek website if you're having difficulty finding the products, and just going to the shopping list for that particular issue, find your pattern, and it will show you all the things that you need to get to stitch whatever design you've chosen. So the ones that I'm focusing on, particularly in this year's, and I showed this when I did the Stashquisitions. So they tend to do a lot of ones where they, you know, they have patterns that carry over multiple. They are larger patterns and they carry over multiple issues. I think technically maybe if you actually spent the 3 months working on them, like over the, so this entire pattern is coming out over 4 issues of the magazine. So the summer one is part number 3. You know, by the end of the year, if you worked on this, theoretically, you'd be able to get it accomplished over the course of a year, which sounds like a great goal, but that's not what I'm doing this year. And again, so this is Ecclesiastes 3:1, to everything there is a season. Anyway, love that design, even though it has yellow in it. Might have to change the yellow a little bit. But here, just to give you on the front page, I'm not going to do a flip through. And again, so if you're looking to see more close-ups of what these particular patterns are from this issue, I will put a link to the Stoney Creek website that shows you these, and you can click on them and look at them in more detail. But those are the ones in there. Now, they do have, so the other thing that they do is that they do have a monthly free chart. It is a hard copy chart. It is not a PDF. So you do need to pay postage for the chart. If you're in the US, I think the postage is quite reasonable. I, as a Canadian, means I would be subject to international shipping for one small chart, which means generally I don't get the free charts because they won't hold it. Like, it's like, could you hold, you know, if they've done one where there's like 4 in the series, they won't hold them till all 4 are complete and then ship them up to me as free charts. They won't do that. You can only get them in the month that they're free. They do come out later as paid for charts. So again, if you're in the US and they appeal to you, I think the shipping in the US for these is actually quite reasonable. Again, for me, I can look at them and wait till they come out as paid charts and then usually get all the ones that I want or all of the series or whatever. But then I'm paying international shipping. So usually at that point, it's easier for me to just buy them from my LNS and get them ordered in. So here's the July 2021 chart. Was this one. I'm assuming this means that August is this, was that one. I don't actually know what the September free chart is. I can put a link to it again in the notes below. But yeah, so I mean, that gives you a gist of like, so each of these charts was free over the course of 2021. So it's always something like, it's always something that I pay attention to, where I go when they start their new series, I look at what I think it's going to look like, and I decide whether I'm interested or not. At this moment in time, I think I have enough Halloween things in my stash that this one I wasn't feeling strongly enough about. But there, for people who are always Halloween stitching is their thing, this is just another option for you. So that's the magazine. So again, so this is an example of their Patterns of the Month series, which ran, so this is from a series that ran from May 2014 to October 2014. It was all Christmas themed. So this is what all 6 of them look like. And again, I think these were free charts at the time. Again, the shipping for the shipping for me was gonna not make it economical. Anyway, I only got a couple out of this series. So again, this is one where I go, I like the fact that, you know, I can see the entire series and go, I'm probably not going to want to stitch all 6 of them, but I will get the ones that I like. So I got October, which said Noel. And these are small designs. These are, where's the stitch count? (61 by 61). So quite a reasonable size, but here's, wait for it. 18 colors of DMC in this, plus 1 week Styworks. And when my LNS brought it in, this is a button, and then there are small star buttons here as well. And so ooh, that's lots of glare. So they brought those, that was part of how they brought it in for me. So I got the chart as well as the buttons. So if you were getting this as a free chart, the chart would be free. You would have to pay the buttons. And Stoney Creek, you know, there are people who have complained over the years that Stoney Creek uses too many buttons, and they're not just like Mill Hill beads, they're buttons. And some of the, you know, some of their patterns, I will say, the buttons can run you up. They can get quite expensive. But you know, I don't think in the pattern where underneath where that chart where this button goes is entirely stitched. So if you chose not to get this, or if you wanted to do a really small fabric button, you have those options as well. Again, I think that was in response to customers sort of saying like, you know, I'm on a limited budget and I can afford the DMC and I can afford the chart and I can afford the fabric, but all these buttons and specialty things that you're calling for are the ones that are putting me over. So I think in response to that, they've actually come back, and generally in a lot of them, they are putting stitching, and then you can choose whether or not you wanted to add the buttons or not. So the second one that I've got from that particular series is the one that says Rejoice. And again, this too came with a few buttons, which I got when my LNS brought them in. They brought in the bead pack for it as well at my request. So I got it all together. So yes, out of the 6, I bought 2. That was the 6 from that one. And so this, you're going to see this, I'm going to show several of the series that I have select charts from, because this is what I do. I look at the series and I assess whether it appeals to me or not. So this one, I'm trying to, 2015, so this looks like, now I don't know if this was a free one or whether they were just running a series. So this is from the Flowers of the Month series. This is March, which is the pansy one, which is lovely. And again, you can see it again. So here's a button here, and there's a button there. Those are Stoney Creek buttons. And again, so whether or not you want to put that, or if you want to replace it with something else, that's your choice. Both of these areas where these are being applied are unstitched, so you could just leave them blank as well. If I were leaving them blank, I would probably move the word pansy over just a little bit, just to give it a little more balance. But, you know, same option, lots of colors, lots of colors. We'll talk about that in a bit. From that same series, I also got the main one, which is Violet. So again, so for me, because I didn't get all of the flowers, I don't have all of the months. So this is one where for me, I think I would not even put the word May. Like I would cut it off here, which means then I don't need this button at all. I do tend to like their butterfly buttons, so I might have that in my stash. I'd have to go back and look. It's not attached to this, so who knows. But again, so I would probably take the May off. For this one, same thing. I would probably end up taking the word March off and replacing it with something else. Don't know what it would be. But if I could even there, I could take the word March off and I could actually just cut this, not do this top flower here, and run it down, right? I could just square this off a little bit earlier. And same thing, if I wanted to keep this butterfly button, I could get rid of this button, bring the butterfly down there and keep the centering. So when it comes time to stitch that, you know, we'll see what I do, because again, I'm not intending on actually doing the word March, because I don't have, well, at this point I'm saying I'm not going to do the word March because I don't have the entire series. But it could be that when I decide to stitch it, that I'll go, no, I do want it to say March. Who knows? Check back in quite a few years. We'll see when I get to that one. All right. And again, so they did a series called Home of the Month. And we all know I have a problem with houses. So this is the April one. I'm trying to get the title all in there, called Dancing in the Rain. I actually like the sentiment on this one as well. Before looking for the rainbow, try dancing in the rain. So that's that one. Again, so this is Again, a huge button over here and a huge button over here. I've seen this button. I'm not sure I like this button, so I think I would come up with something different. And I probably wouldn't use this button either. It's not in the current 5-year stitch plan, so, you know, I don't have to solve that problem. From that same series, again, so I do not have all 12 months. I didn't like all 12 months. I have some of them. So this is that same series, Home of the Month. This is the July one. Beach, blue, sailboat, warm. Yeah, that's me. Summertime and the living is easy. Ugh, if only it were easy all the time. Okay, so they have, so this is moving off of those monthly series. This is the book called Stitching to the Music. So love music, play multiple instruments. So the ones in here that I really like, so this is what the cover looks like. So you can see that there are other things here. The back cover is really just a repeat, but this is the one where I like this one, I like this one, and I like this one. Now, true to form, the colors for this one are quite earth tony. You know, so browns and golds and rusts and, you know, olive greens and that kind of thing. So when I go to stitch these, and again, I would like to stitch them not together, but the palette for all of these would be in the same palette. I'm planning on changing that palette. And again, my music room has magenta walls and silver and mirrored furniture and the black piano in there. So it's going to turn into tones that will go in that room. This is, again, so same thing in the bucket, the container where I keep all of these. I am keeping these in the order in which I would like to stitch them. This is quite close to the top. Love this one. Love it, love it, love it. Anyway, but I'm working on the Stoney Creek one that was on the very top, which is Tapestry of Life, and we'll see how long it takes for me to, you know, finish that one, because that's a bigger one. So let me just yeah. And in fact, I'm having a good chuckle. So this is what I do. So I've taken a photocopy of the colors that are in here, and I think I must have started doing this when I was in the store getting it. I was playing around, so I've actually got scribbled notes about where I think the colors could be changing, what they could be, you know, with, and added on, taped on piece coming from who knows where. So there's already notes on what I might be changing on this one. So true to form. Love the concept, love the design. I just need to fix the colors into my color palette. For those of you who are really, you know, are sitting in the camp going, yep, really like it, it's lovely, but yeah, there's no way I would ever tackle those ones that have, you know, 1,200 color changes of 3 stitches each. They do have ones that are monochromatic. So again, so here's a Halloween one that I have. I should really look at these. Magic in the Night. There's Magic in the Night When Pumpkins Glow by Moonlight. So believe it or not, I actually have a piece of fabric to do this on, which is, I think it's Fabrics by Stephanie Butterscotch. I should have hauled that out. I actually got it in one of my Stitchy boxes back when I was getting those subscriptions. And I think it's the perfect color for this. Not surprisingly, all of this is entirely worked in DMC 310. Actually, let me see if that's actually what they say. I, of course, won't. Oh, they didn't. So they did it in Weeks Dye Works Mascara, which is pretty much DMC 310. I, of course, won't do it in black. I would do this in a navy blue, just because that's more me. But yes. So again, this would be much easier stitching. Still like how this looks, like how it comes across. Like I say, I already have the fabric picked out for this. I know exactly what it is. I would just change it to blue. This is not in the 5-year stitching plan. Okay, so this is, they ended up doing a series of these and I really like them because it's got buildings. So this is Spring in the Village. Now, you don't have to do the entire street scene. As they show down here, you could just pick some of the buildings and do that for, you know, whatever. The words below it, because that might be hard to see on the screen, says, Spring's behavior is ever spent to make the world magnificent. So, you know, a very springy palette there. Sort of pastels. There's a lot of pastel pink in there. They, of course, have done all 4 seasons, and I, of course, have all 4. I've worked on none of them. I bought them all in one go because they had them. So this is Summer in the Village. Same concept. We all know I have a problem with houses and buildings and things like that. The sentiment is, summer is a lovely time of carefree play and sunny days. So again, so that is Summer in the Village. I'm very specifically trying to get the titles in here when I'm showing them because I was watching somebody this week where I'm like, thank you for showing me the design up close, but you haven't been explicitly clear about who the designer is or the name of the chart that if I wanted to go out and get this, how to get it. So I'm this week I'm particularly where it's a lot easier. The designer for all of these is Stoney Creek because I'm saying it's Stoney Creek September. So this is Autumn in the Village. And the sentiment on this one is, autumn is a second spring when every leaf's a flower. And then, of course, there is Winter in the Village. Again, same concept. I love them all. I love them all, which is why they're in my stash. Let me just, so the stitch count for these are 250 wide by 71 high. So not terribly high, but long. Again, not horrifically long. The finished size on this. So they did their model on 28 count, which worked out to be 17 3/4 inches long by 5 inches high. I love, it's going to be a problem because I love even looking at them. And I mean, don't get me wrong. I know that it's going to be a pain in the neck to stitch this and there's a lot of colors in there. But I love how they look. I love how they look. And we'll talk about that in a bit as well. The sentiment on this one is, winter's blessing is the gift of quiet reflection. I also confess, unlike last week where I went and already found out that Tapestry of Life was out of print, I have not gone and checked on all of these. So sorry about that, if it turns out that some of these are out of print. And of course, so this is called The Christmas Sleigh in the Village. It's technically not part of the series. It's a smaller design, but I felt it belonged with the rest of them. So I got that one as well. And it's Christmas. And I love a lot of Christmas things. It'd be interesting to go back and categorize all the charts that I have in my stash and just to see how much Christmas I have, because it's going to be a lot. Because this next section is entirely Christmas. So this is a leaflet that says Rejoice. And it is a companion piece. I have this companion piece as well. I just didn't haul it out, but here is, it's called Believe. And again, Like, I think the framing that they've done on these is just lovely. Sorry about the glare on that. The sun has come out surprisingly. Again, love how this looks. And I already know, so the shading that you get here in this word is actually done with, I want to say 4, maybe 5 DMCs. One, two, 3, 4, 5. So 5 colors of DMC to get this ombre effect in the word. And I already know, like, these flowers are going to be finicky and disgusting and will drive me nuts. But same thing, I love how they look at the end. I love how they look at the end. Again, a lot of color changes in the majority of Stoney Creek charts, and generally a lot of back stitching. So if the combination of those two things drive you nuts, they're probably not good charts for you to stitch. Depends on how much you love it. So this is one, an LNS that used to be in existence here, which is where this chart actually I bought. The funny thing is, my mom bought it. It came in a booklet as well, and I'll put the reference to the booklet as well. So my mom got the booklet, my aunt got the chart. Our family is quite drawn to this, and I love this. And the LNS who had it, where we got it, it was this, oh, this one came from the Purple Needle, so that's not true. Mom got hers from the Stitching Post. They actually did stitch this and had the mats cut like this in the house shape. It looked fantastic, which I think is why both my mom and my aunt bought the pattern. And it's lovely. And yes, I would like to stitch it. One of these days when I have all the time in the world, big long list of colors, not surprising. Anyway, more Christmas ones. So this is their 100th book. This is the one that I love. And can't read it from the cover. Let's see if I can't tell you what the words say. Where is he that is born King of the Jews? For we have seen his star in the east and are come to worship him. So it's lovely, 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 lovely. And having done Stoney Creeks, like, I can look this and go, like, it's just going to be stunning. Yeah. That's all there is to it. I think it's going to be stunning. So there's, you know, clearly more than one pattern in this. And here's the back cover as well. So they also have stocking patterns. I have a couple of them. This is called Holiday Dreams. Again, so to me, this is something like you could show me this stitch and I would take one look at it and go, this is a Stoney Creek. This is very typical Stoney Creek shading, styling, color palette, all that kind of stuff, which is, I think, generally why they appeal to me. They don't just do, so this is, I actually have this one, Far Eastern Florals. So if you were participating, I think a while back there was a sale going on where they were stitching Asian themed pieces. I did look at this and go, I could participate, but it wasn't in my plan for this year. And as much as I like the concept of the sale, what the sale was meant to do to support Asians, I was like, I'm just going to stick with my plan and just go, I've got something to stitch. So the one that I really like is this one. That's the one why I got this book for. And again, so these are the 3 from the front cover. These are the 3 from the back cover. I wonder why that looks different. Anyway. One of these days when I have time to stitch all the things. All right, so that So that is a little bit of a tromp through the Stoney Creek magazines that I have. Do want to talk a little bit about, a little bit more about the pickiness of Stoney Creek. Not that I want to dissuade you, but I just want everybody to be aware. So this is one, this is a previous finish, which I finished in 2020. I think that's, let's get this. I don't know where the other one went. And it's been rolled up, so it's wrinkled, and I didn't iron for this because it's going to go back into its spot because I haven't decided what I want to do with it yet. Let's see if I've got one more because I think the other one fell underneath the chair. There we go. Okay, so this is the one that I did, again, my aunt gave me. She was getting rid of her cross-stitch stuff while she was still alive, and I had chosen that my goal for Lent stitching in 2020 was that I was going to work on this piece. So she had worked on the top part here, had sort of got most of this top part here, and had started on the robe, and that was about as far as she'd gotten. And she changed the colors, which is typical, I feel like, for my family. We go, it's a really great design, we just need to change the colors. And so she actually died, she passed away very unexpectedly the day before Lent started in 2020, so it made it a very meaningful piece for me. But again, this is very typical for Stoney Creek shading. And so each one of these flowers, and as usual, the camera is not going to do it justice. So each one of these flowers has, in terms of the petals, generally has about 5 colors in that, in sort of the petal area per flower. The center, again, it's hard to tell in this camera. There are 2 colors of yellow for the center of each of those flowers. So there's a total of 3 stitches at the center of each of those flowers. There's 2 colors of yellow. Now, do you really have to do it as 2 colors? No. Could I have just picked one and went with it and nobody would have known the difference? No. But I was finishing this piece and I, followed the pattern. And again, as you can tell, each of these flowers is backstitched. The center is backstitched. The vines are backstitched. There's backstitching in each of these leaves. So again, there's backstitching throughout the cross. Yes, you've used different colors in here. I will say, I think if you go back into the videos, so yeah, let's say March 2020, which is when I was stitching on this, you will see the progress on this and you will see what it looks like before the back stitching occurs. And you can compare that difference. And, again, the back stitching to me in this one absolutely makes this as stunning as it is. Like if you didn't do the back stitching, to me, it doesn't look as good. But again, there's a lot of backstitching here. There's backstitching everywhere in this piece. So if you don't like backstitching, again, it's not that you can't do a Stoney Creek. I think you just need to be very specific about the Stoney Creek pattern that you would work on, and you need to know what you're getting yourself into. And then, so because my aunt had started this, I have put her initials down here on the left-hand side in purple, which was her favorite color. So again, she changed, the purple that is used in here is not the called for color for this pattern. She changed those. Purple is her favorite color. So I put her initials down here on the left-hand side in her favorite color. And I put my initials and the year that I finished it, which of course is also the year that she passed away, on the right-hand side in green, I think. Yes, green. 500, I'm pretty sure this is 550 over here. Anyway, so love how this looks. I really should figure out what to do. Well, the real answer is I need to get this framed, so I just need to get my act together and get it framed and get it hung on the wall, because I will always think of my aunt when I look at this. So the other one that I have finished, another one, so I gave that away as a gift. So I do have a picture of it. It's a bow. The thing to me is when I gifted this to its recipient is I really thought that they were just going to hang it up, at the end of a banister or beside the fireplace or something like this. They actually went out and got it framed in a shadow box, and they actually have it hanging up in the stairwell of their home year round. It is an Easter themed piece. The picture is not fantastic, again, because it's in a stairwell. I would say the lighting is not fantastic in that stairwell, so I've done my best with the picture, but I do have a picture of it hanging in the stairwell, and I will insert that here. So that's an Easter bow. My funny story about that one is that I was over at a friend's place and we were stitching together. She was working on a Precious Moments picture and I was working on that, and I was working at the bottom of one of those tail ends because I was working on my way up, because sort of the instructions are you start from the bottom and you stitch that bottom part, then you tie the bow, and then you put those flowers on the top of, once you know where your bow is, that's when you stitch the flowers up there. So it was an interesting experience stitching that, a little complicated. But again, it was Stoney Creek. The base, had a lot of color changes in it. And so I think, after the afternoon of the stitching, I think the Precious Moment she was stitching was like a Noah's Ark thing. So I feel like she had like about a third of the boat done. And I had like these tiny 6 rows of stitching on my piece done. We'd spent the same amount of stitching. I just had a lot more color changes than she did. She had this lovely, gray and, anyway, whatever. It sort of gave me that sort of like, this is how long this is going to take you to stitch. The other one, I have stitched another Stoney Creek. I did it as a wedding present for some friends of mine. I don't actually have a picture of that one. That was before I remembered that I should probably take pictures of these things before I gave them away. And again, the one in the hall in the stairwell, I got that after they put it into the shadow box. But I've stitched another one. My friend was getting married. I gave her some options and she chose the one that she really liked. And so I got that stitched up for, as a wedding gift for them. Anyway, so I have stitched several of them. So I always know when I start, when I know what I'm getting myself into. A lot of color changes, a lot of colors to achieve the look and the shading that are involved in Stoney Creek charts, a lot of back stitching. But again, the back stitching to me brings all the definitions and the highlights and all that kind of stuff. And I love how it looks at the end. So yes, so even like on Tapestry of Life, as I've said, this area, this border down here is going to drive me nuts because it's, 5 different colors, generally no more than 5 stitches per color. And in some of the cases, it's like 2. Which is why at this point it's a little harder to get going on it, because you've got like, if you start with a color and you go like, well, there's 2 stitches and 2 stitches, that's a lot harder to start and end when there's nothing else around it. So I like my approach where I'm sort of doing a bit after everyone. So again, check back next week to see how that's coming, because I think it's going to make me be able to get through that. And I think that's those flowers at the bottom, which are again repeated at the top, are going to be the most painful parts of that particular chart. So hopefully this approach will work, and I will sort of be starting, you'll be able to see more progress on that area, and it will be driving me batty while I'm working on it. And so with that, I'm having a quick look around. I think that's all that I've got for you for today. So I hope everybody's had a great week. I hope everybody's staying safe, staying healthy, and finding some time to get some stitching done. And as always, if you've got comments, questions, topics you would like me to address, always happy to hear from you. Put them in the comments down below. love virtually chatting with you and look forward to seeing you next week. Take care, guys.